Hello and welcome to Stories Without Limits, KRAN podcast, where we share powerful voice, lived experience, and the work happening across our communities. In today's episode, focus on the recent regional conference in Kent, which brought together community organization, advocate, and individual to strengthen solidarity and collective action. I'm joined today by two wonderful guests, Eiri from Right to Remain and Razia, KRAN CEO. Thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll start with Eiri. Could you please introduce yourself and your role in the organization?
Thank you. My name is Eiri. I'm director of Right to Remain. We are a national migration justice charity, and what we are trying to do is we are trying to build a world where everybody can exercise their right to remain where they want to be and where they need to be with dignity and humanity. We're a tiny organization, and many of the groups and people know us through our public legal education, the toolkit. So we do a lot of different things to achieve this world. We do explain to people how the legal system works so that they can secure their immigration status. We also do a lot of convening, bringing different organizations and groups together who are all working with refugees, migrants, and also people seeking asylum because they really need to get together to be fighting together, right? And then we also do campaigning and organizing. We run a project called These Walls Must Fall, which is a group of people with lived experience of the asylum and migration system who are coming together to fight the injustice of the system. So that's what we do.
Thank you so much. And starting with the intro, we're going to talk about the regional conference that we held. So why Kent? Because I do remember that it was like you brought up with the idea with
Mm-hmm.
Razia. Obviously, Kent is in geography, especially with the recent everything happening around. There is a lot of things to say about it. But from your perspective, why Kent?
Yeah, so maybe I can talk a little bit about what we have been doing as an organization, and that will probably place Kent in that context. So we believe that people need to come together, especially during these hard times. And although we are tiny organization, we have been spending a lot of time meeting with hundreds of organizations, thousands of people who all want to see migration justice in the UK. Now, so for example, last year we worked with about 500 groups directly and met, talked, and discussed things together with about 1,500 people. So our reach is really wide. But when we are looking at their own data and looking at the groups that we know very well, groups we don't know very well, Kent was always a bit of a kind of blank space for us for some reasons. When we say we are small, we are really tiny. Until last month, we only had 5 people. So what we can do is very limited. But I think we are all aware of very worrying changes in a political environment. And some of the regions experience that shift towards harsher reality
Yeah.
much earlier than the other regions. And Kent was one of those areas where we, first of all, because we didn't know much about Kent, we wanted to know. But knowing that the other groups in other parts of the UK are struggling, we felt that, okay, we probably need to learn from Kent as to what's going on. So that's the reason why I reached out to Razia late last year to see whether we can do something together. And also what we thought we might be able to do is to extend this culture of solidarity that is already taking place in other parts of the UK that we see on a day-to-day basis. So that was the reason why we were interested in coming to Kent.
Sure, thank you for sharing. I do agree with you in terms of like there is no much coverage for Kent apart from obviously the boat coming here and the numbers statistically around the media, but within so if I let to compare like the campaign that you had in Manchester and other area as well, there is a big group that there is organization that can be leading around it. Whereas in Kent, even though we are small, there's so much like qualities of resources that they can be. And I guess that's the whole conference was around it. And that's not only just like in terms of the people was there, but also the quality of delivering.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective again, how did this one feel compared to other events that you have held, and if you can expand on that as well.
I think, Risha, you are right that when we visit other geographical areas or regions, often they have got, let's say they have got a little bit more infrastructure. Maybe they have got more bigger organizations.
Mhm.
But what that can also hide is the question of, is there actual relationship between groups, between people, between different areas? And what I really felt when I went to attend, when me and my colleagues went to attend your conference, is that there was a sense of freshness for people coming into the shared space, which I thought was quite remarkable, compared to other places where, let's say, people are kind of quite used to see each other,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether they might be doing something together. They know each other. There is this space already. But I felt that the attendees of the conference came with a real sense of, this is something new. This
Mm-hmm.
is something we have been waiting for, and we just can't wait to get started. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the impression I got when I got to your venue.
Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. No, I did had the same feeling in terms of like how the attention of the people around and going around. Obviously you did go around the table, and then you feeling that it was a different people from the different sectors. And for us, for now, how is the general feeling in our sector around the country, not only just with Ken, but in general around the whole country?
I think people are waking up to the fact that migration justice isn't just about migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. It is about common humanity. So I suppose, let's say 5 years ago, if you are going to these events in other regional areas, you probably only saw specialist organizations who have
Mm-hmm.
been specifically working with asylum seekers, who have been specifically working with migrants. Nowadays, the picture is a little bit different. That the many people can see that actually this is about our own community. Therefore, we see a wider range of groups coming into the space, people who provide ESOL provision, healthcare workers, people who run library sessions. And I think that is a really good thing. So as an organization, as Right to Remain, we have been saying that migration justice has to go mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't just change society by us specialists working together. We need to be bringing more people into the space. And I felt that at the regional conference in Kent, I really felt that. And I think that is a really good potential to, I know that you guys have been doing so much already, but there's also so much more potential to do more. That is the feeling I had.
Sure. I absolutely agree with you in terms of bringing community is not about professionalism of how people there, like let's say someone from, I don't know, political sector, or someone for, it's kind of those outside there who work hand to hand with the young people, and they have not only to be observe of the lived experience of the young person, but also to be there seeing the work. And one of the thing I guess like stood up for me when your colleague said that there is one aspect of a young person will read to the point, and then from there they can't go further, and it's for us or someone who work with the young people to take that lead. And I've kind of bring to me as an imagery of an athlete when they as a group, when someone has to run and then give the stick to the another person, and then the other person run, and then it goes like that. And I guess it's like the I don't want to call it a fight because it sounds negative, but because I want to call it as again of human being, as you said it earlier, is people waking up to understand that the story is being preserved outside there in the media. It's not the actual what it is outside. And I guess it's like nowadays we see there is a division of thinking that we have to be in one side, and then the other public be on the other side, whereas it shouldn't be. It's just is one hand to hand and a community. And I think that that's what brings that conference like about solidarity and community. And that's how my feeling was towards that, and that's the feeling that I got from other people as well.
Yeah, and I just want to also add another thing, which is the way that the young people open the conference. And I really felt that the young people were very important part of that space and very important part of the community, that you are actually making that community yourselves. And I think that is really important because I think, I do think that whether it might be migration, it might be homelessness and other places, there's often this distinction of we are the people who provide services and you are the people who receive services. And I didn't really feel that distinction at your conference. And that I think is a real testament to the work that you have been doing as an organization and as a community. And I am pretty sure when people see that, people can feel that, yeah, this is who we are. We are already together anyway. We just need to make a little bit more effort to make something happen. So I really came away with that sense of, yes, this is a community that is already together.
Thank you so much. That's a really good feedback. I will always remind our CEO to say that, like, been working with us. And that's one of, like, honestly, if I say what KRAN is about, is the heart is for us is the young people. And then not only to work for the young people, but to work with the young people and always stood. And that's by obviously having youth ambassador, youth media ambassador, and then we have support as well. I'm bringing now Razia to this to the podcast, just to know, like, your overall about the conference. What's the vibe for you? Obviously, if I can go backward of the preparation, it was a lot for us to have meeting over meeting by just preparing. But and I think is I can talk so much from my side, but I want to know, like, from your side again. You've done really so much work with you and Eiri together, and then to make up this conference. How is it for you, the overall?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Erie and Right to Remain for everything that they've done to support and organize the conference with us. When they approached us, we were, oh, wow, they're the authors of these brilliant toolkits and resources that we're so reliant on, and they have all these expertise in kind of collective campaigning where people with lived experience are taking the lead, and there's just so much we can learn from that. So I just want to say thank you to Erie for that and for joining us as part of that and coming to Kent for that. It was obviously the first conference of its kind in Kent. So just as Erie was saying, that kind of freshness, shared space, waiting for. And we did a lot of prep work for it. So we went out and we talked to a lot of the community groups as well, to try and engage and find out what the issues were and then bring them together for it. And it was really important for KRAN that we weren't kind of managing, controlling, or coordinating the whole thing, but we were just facilitating a space for the communities of Kent to come together and start to have those conversations. And like Erie said, build those relationships, come together, given the fact that we've got this worrying, changing political environment. And given the fact that we have actually got a harsher reality now in Kent, a year on after a political party has become the legal guardians of the young people that we work with. And she's also correct in her assessment that actually Kent, doesn't really have that infrastructure and approach that other areas have in the same shape and form. It's a very big county, and the issues and the challenges are very different in different areas and pockets. You've got the coastal communities, you've also got the inlands, etc., and so forth, and the student populations. And so it is quite, it's hidden. The relationships are hidden. And then what was interesting was when we were doing the listening events, people were saying, yeah, I know all the other names, and our paths sometimes cross, but I'm too busy getting on with what I do. What's the point? Do we really need to start building those relationships? But I think the big message that came from the conference and the vibe that came from the conference was that value of connecting, of actually meeting people for the first time, even though they've heard their names or they've heard about them. And being able to get to a place where they created that statement of solidarity, where they were able to agree collectively on something that was quite a profound statement, actually. But also they were able to give commitments to actions and things that they want to take forward from that. So it's not just an end in itself, but it's the beginning of something very new and exciting, I think, for Kent.
Thank you so much, Razia. And I, again, like, that's the beginning of, and I wish more to come, not only as a conference, but also within every individuals, if I could say that, like other community having to meet someone. And I remember that you said something like, you give us a challenge, like, can you meet up 5 people and then just have that kind of connection. And out of it, as much as we can talk about in terms of solidarity, community, but also out of it is that connection of other people to know that it's not only one particular group, it's not only just refugee, it's not only this and that, but it's collective of, let's say, not a struggle, but also like collective work, if I could say that. And I remember, like, one of the things, again, it was that workshop that we had, is there was like, at the conference, each table had to work as a group to create solidarity statement. And that statement one was, our Kent communities believe that together we can create a peaceful, inclusive, and just society that celebrate our common humanity. How can we create that peaceful inclusion and just society from your perspective? And I would obviously listen as well to Eiri from that side. And I think it's like, it is a huge statement, and I think is our mission, not our mission, our goal is that to create that. But how can we do that?
Yeah. So what was interesting was in the first half, when we were doing those table talks, with everybody, and we were asking them at the beginning about what their priority was for communities in Kent. And we did a word cloud with it using technology that I know nothing about, but the younger people were able to do all of that. Yes. But, the biggest words were solidarity, understanding, compassion, harmony, inclusivity, cohesion. And I just love all of those words, because I think that is how we create that just society, with people and individuals having those values and those beliefs in the way that they do what they do. And that we move away from that wider narrative, which is so kind of easily targeting the other, the person who's newly arrived, and I think the British Futures has just published a report this week, looking at that gap between public perceptions and reality, and how the political media narrative and discourse is creating a frame that actually is not accurate, is not representative of the reality on the ground, and is creating that challenge of having people who are migration skeptics, rather than being migration liberals, and seeing the benefits and the assets of migration coming into the UK. And that notion of migration justice and that common humanity isn't featured in that wider narrative and discourse. And I think we need to start challenging that right there at the beginning, not just with people with lived experience taking a lead, but probably also with the allies across sectors, not just the refugee sector, but across sectors.
Thank you so much. And you, Eiri?
I agree with you, Razia, and I think we need to be mindful of the fact that the refugee communities, migrant communities, and allies have been under so much pressure for the last decades, or several decades, due to the hostile environment. But they are determined to change the narrative. They are determined to rewrite the story. You need a lot of energy to do that. We need to also sustain ourselves. So all the holding spaces work that you are doing, we are doing, is a way to make sure that we can continue doing this very, very important work, because it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, because if it was easy, we would have been able to rewrite the narrative already. There must be a reason why this is quite difficult. And, Risha, you we have been talking about relationships, connection, and trust. None of these things we can actually see with our eyes, but without these things, we can't meet the moment. So not only do we have the challenge of rewriting the narrative, other horrible things might happen. And when those catastrophe or terrible things happen, what we always go back to is those relationships. So without those foundation, we won't even be able to meet those moments. So I think that continuing to hold those spaces, continuing to provide spaces and facilitating these places, it might not seem like a very radical act, but for me, that is a very radical act to sustain the migration justice movement. So I really hope that you can, or we can all continue doing that.
Thank you so much for you, Eiri, and thank you so much, Razia. And I guess there's a lot of being said on this podcast. I wouldn't say that I can summarize the whole things, but I think in particular would be working together to make sure that we write the story of our young people, not only just out by ourselves, but the young people to be there, give them the platform and give them. And that's one of the things that's why I felt it when I was there. Like obviously being the host, not only just to tell my story, but also to listen to other people, like who giving other young people experience, and then just is collective of stories that they are the authentic one. They are the one that stood out there, not just because of the negative narrative is being presented. So thank you so much for both of you for sharing your thoughts and ideas. And then last things will be for me to Razia, what's going to happen next?
So we're just about to publish the conference report on the outcomes from the conference. So that was mainly from the first half because we were learning so much from the second half. And hopefully then we'll start organizing gatherings again in the different locations and areas just to see what they think about the outcomes from the conference and what they would like to do with that, where they want to take that. Part of the evaluation was for people to actually talk about the actions that they want to do and what they're going to do differently. So checking in with that and how we want to deal with that. Also looking at kind of co-producing the comms mechanism. How are we going to communicate with each other? How are we going to liaise with each other? How are we going to coordinate all of that? And, are there particular organizations in each of the areas that can take a little bit of a lead on that, or how are we going to manage and organize all of that? But I think there's also a need to do some more training and development work with the communities in Kent, just to learn more about the tools and the skills and the knowledge that is needed to have those courageous conversations, to make that change, to talk to people who might be the skeptics or who might be in that middle, who aren't sure and just read what they read, but they're not really sure what their position is. And I think we want to try and bring other sectors in as well as part of that conversation later on down the line. So academics, for example, and what their take is on how we might do this, other statutory sector providers who are sympathetic or empathetic and work with young people or work with refugees and asylum seekers all the time. And to think about that way forward from there, But like we've said before, we're just supporting and facilitating. So I have no end game. We have no end game. We want to just make that change in the communities. And if anything is our end game, it is that statement of solidarity that we're going to be working to and trying to deliver on.
Sure. Thank you so much, Razia. I think there's a lot of things to be done, but it's always one step at a time, and we'll make it happen with the support, obviously, that our young people and the public as well. We'll never be one side our own. It's always there is two side of being together. It's not only just they, them, or like they and us. It's always like you say that it's not about anti this or anti that. It's about like community and coming together and just be there to say this is our story and we're happy to work.
Yeah, sure. And Eiri, you want to have the last word?
I am pretty sure with all the enthusiasm, wisdom, and also the trust that the people have in you, that is going to be possible. So I look forward to working with you together in the future again.
Sure. Thank you so much, Eiri, and thank you so much, Razia. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. A big thank you to you, Eiri, from Right to Remain, and
Thank
Razia,
you.
our KRAN CEO, for joining us and sharing their thoughts on the regional conference in Kent. Today's episode shows how important community connection, solidarity really are. We will leave you with the solidarity statement from the conference. Our Kent communities believe that together we can create a peaceful, inclusive, and just society that celebrate our common humanity. And how beautiful that we would be if we could all live in harmony with no borders that separate us and where everyone can be themselves. Thank you so much for our listening to Story Without Limit. If you like this episode, please share it with others and don't forget to check our previous episode on KRAN's website. Till next time, stay tuned and connected.